Today, we're going to talk about some failure stories, which I forget how many there actually are. And this goes back quite a ways to the business I had in Florida and don't really apply to marketing. I had my own private investigator agency there, and I was in charge of marketing for it because I didn't have the money to hire a firm, and I figured I would just do it. Now, this is before I did any of the work I did now, so I didn't really know what I was doing, but I wasn't good at that. I tried to build my own site. I don't really. That business was not a failure, but I had also opened up that nonprofit for human trafficking rescues, and that ended up not doing well through COVID because it relied on donations and things like that. So we don't need to go all the way back to previous businesses, but I'm just thinking about the trajectory and all the things that did not work out. And there's been a lot of them. I would say probably out of 10 ideas, maybe 2 actually worked. And I don't really think that that's a bad thing. I think that you do learn a lot from failure, and I say it like that because it sucks at the time. It's easy to be like, oh yeah, that was totally worth it, or what do they say? I wouldn't change a thing. Like, well, or I wouldn't be here
There's
today.
definitely some there's some failures I've had where I'm like, oh yeah, if I could go back in time, I'd change that. Like what I learned,
Yeah,
I'm an idiot. Like I
yeah,
learned some stupid shit.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, so there's definitely like there's a lot of it, but you do learn a lot from because you learned how to navigate through your own emotions. You learn how to navigate through your own thought processes.
Yeah.
Trial and error is a very good thing. I mean, especially now that I have a stepson right now. If you warn him not to do everything and say, oh, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, he's not really going to learn anything. So the way that kids
Right.
learn is the exact same way that we should learn with our businesses and our lives is trial and error. He's going to do something, hurt himself, and realize, okay, that's the wrong thing to do. Or he's going to do something and it's going to succeed, and he's going to learn, okay, this is what you need to do, so this is going to get proven results. So you definitely do learn from failures, except for there's some failures that really fucking sting. Like
When somebody's like, if what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I'm like, fuck off, because sometimes it's just bullshit, because it's a coping mechanism. It's like anything. It's like people use to make themselves feel more comfortable. Like it's just it's for the best. I'm like, well, maybe not. Maybe this really just did fucking suck. But even in this industry, we've had independently and as a group, we've had what I would call failures. I mean, I'm just trying to think, of something recent the other day. We've had clients that didn't work out, which obviously they were difficult. When I say obviously they were difficult, because we really bent over backwards to try to make them happy, and it just didn't work. And those probably, had we hung on to those. So this isn't like a show about dealing with bad clients, even though some of those did lead to failures. But there's a lot of ideas that we've had that we've run with, that we've tried, like different angles of marketing ourselves. Like what type of clientele are we going after?
Yeah.
What services are we going to offer? What prices are we going to offer them at? What models are we going to follow? I mean, for a while there, we were focused solely on just building end-to-end sales funnels, which we do now still, but we branched off into other things. And the AI is out here now, so there's not a whole lot we can do about that. You can't fight it, you can't hide from it. So your option is to conform and get better at it and get faster at things. So as far as recent failures go, I mean, we built that whole sales funnel for Brittany, for example.
I mean, a lot like touching back on what you said with difficult clients at it too. I think the failure in that was not listening to our intuition. Like we had, I think all of us kind of with some of the clients, obviously we're going to leave names out of this, but we kind of knew that they would be difficult or they were underpaying, and we're just like, either people pleasing to try and make them happy and get their product up and running, or we were coming from a scarcity mindset, being like, well, it's been a slow week or a slow month. Like, sure, we'll take this on. So like, I think even though I would consider that part the failure, not so much the separation of work with the client, because it was, our ideas and visions didn't line up, and that happens. But what we learned was to not underbid ourselves. We're not going to, take shortcuts and give off deals anymore. I mean, we only have 1,000 for a retainer. Yeah, sure. Let's just lube up our asshole and fuck us while you're at it. Like, so we learned not to just take anything. We learned how to sift and sort through clients. I've turned down some people already in the last couple months because of that, because I knew it didn't vibe with them. So that was, I would say, the failure was not listening to our intuition on some of those clients.
And this reminds me of the big one it'll be almost a year coming up here in a couple of months. And again, we learned a lot from this, and it got us to where we are now. We're a lot leaner now, and we're a lot more confident in our pricing and things that we can offer that we're good at, because we tried offering people certain things and we just couldn't make it happen. and it could have been the product and it could have been them. So the big overarching like failure, quote unquote, last year was the hyper growth we had in the beginning, where we had all those clients coming in for the sales funnels, and then we had too many team members spread out across multiple things. We were using Slack and ClickUp, and the platforms are awesome. This is not anything negative about the platforms, but we had too many people doing different things. We were spreading ourselves too thin on a lot of aspects of it, and things weren't getting supervised as much as they should have, because I just didn't have time, because I got too greedy. I was trying to carry clients I worked with long term versus these new group projects. And we brought people in, and we like, okay, well, you're going to make this much money, and ended up not leaving any left over for administrative stuff. So, and then of course, shiny object syndrome ran out, and this is all on me. I ran out, got a whole bunch of subscriptions to things. We needed some of those, but we didn't need all of them. So I guess a big failure from last year is literally we dumped a shitload of time, effort, money, and just trying to get this big marketing machine up and running, and we grew too fast. I mean, it was almost overnight. I'm like, hey, we need this, we need that. And then all of a sudden, what happened is that the current client base that I had, I mean, some clients we worked together on, some clients you had your own, I had my own, and so does everybody else on the team. So what was happening is instead of growing and making a lot of money off of all the new clients, I was neglecting everybody. So all my quality went down. It actually probably hurt, I don't want to say my reputation, but people were like, what happened? Like, you're very attentive. You're like always on top of my shit. And now I only get like 10 minutes a week from you because you're too busy. So I spread myself too thin. We had too many people involved. And when you build a team, not everybody's just autonomous. You can't just like, hey, you need to do these things this week, and then they get it done. Some people need to be looked in on. So all the moving parts. So I guess the big thing I'm hitting on is people, when they start something like this, they think they need all the tools. I need to hire all these people. Then you spend your entire fucking day managing or trying to manage all the moving parts. And then at the end of the day, you're like, well, I didn't get anything done because I was the middleman on all these things. So that was a big one. And we've since dialed it back. And now we have people, in their own silos doing their thing. But that was stressful.
I think one of the hard parts too is because we had so many people, we had like 3 people that do videos and 2 people that do emails and 6 people that do this. So we'd almost like forget who we assign a task to. And then we're like, oh, Bobby's got it. I'm just using fake names right now, but Bobby's got it. And then realistically, it actually went to like, Sarah. And you're like, I thought Bobby was doing it. No, Sarah's supposed to do it. So like things were getting missed because you either delegated it to a different person that we thought to, or we just didn't delegate it at all. Like we thought someone else was going to handle it because, this is their industry. So yeah, we grew way too quick, which is like, it's kind of funny to think about. Like, I mean, how many people complain about that? Like, we grew so fast and we just had so many clients and money coming in, but it's a true thing. Cause like there's like that one clip. It's like, she wasn't ready. Like we just weren't ready. We just weren't ready for it.
Yeah. And what sparked all that was I had not been on Upwork, and we'll do a show about that and how I prospect on there. I've made a lot of money off Upwork over the years, and I know a lot of people shit on those platforms, Upwork, Fiverr, whatever, but I found it works for me because I was able to get a good rating on there and earn enough money on there. So now my profile is elevated on there. So now everybody's like, oh, this guy must be great. But it doesn't work for everybody. Now it's kind of saturated. So around the first of the year, not long after, right around the time we all met in Playa down there, I'm like, well, I'm going to start prospecting. Well, the thing is, I started prospecting and everybody said yes. And instead of me being like, I need to raise my prices, or maybe I don't need more clients, I was just like, yeah, I could do another fucking thing. And then I would try to outsource it, and that wouldn't go very well. And another big thing that happened with that hyper growth is you get a lot of people involved. And if people have a vested interest and not just collecting an hourly or per project rate, they tend to, they'll care more, they'll look in on things more. So what happens is if you're just paying somebody hourly, they should still work hard for the money, because that's what an ethical person does. But they're not going to care as much as we care about what we're doing and about the agency. So it's like, if you don't keep an eye on people, like, oh, I thought they were going to do this. I'm like, I'm just waiting for you to tell me what to do. Things slip through the crack, things don't get done. And another big mistake people make is, so too many platforms, too many shiny objects in the beginning. I have to hire more people, and then they try to go cheap on that, which fucking backfires every time if you try to hire somebody and they're like, well, this is my price. And you're like, well, that's kind of expensive. Can you do it for less? They may say like, oh, sure, I'll do that. But then they're going to, in the back of their mind, they're going to be like, screw that guy. I'll get to him. Cause I do it today. I do it to this day. If somebody's like, can you do it for half? I'm like, you asshole. You know, we've said this before. If you're like, hey, I'm here to cut your grass, it's going to be $100 for the whole lawn, and you're like, can you do it for 50? I'll be like, what like what kind of shit is that, right?
We said this on an early one of our first podcasts, and it's like it's one of the biggest insults you could possibly say. Like, your price is set. Your price is set. It's like you said with the cutting your grass, like any other profession, you don't go to your doctor and you getting like heart surgery. It's like, well, it's going to cost you don't have insurance, it's going to be 10 grand. I'm like, well, I really need the heart, but like, you know, can you do it for 5? Like, so he's even, and the thing is, they're always going to say no. So, but the thing is, with our industry is, you know, a lot of people there have the scarcity mindset, so they're more likely going to say yes. But like you said, the quality is not going to be there. I've had clients, and you know, this is a failure story of mine. Is I originally quoted this one guy, you know, it was like $1,200 to build out, you know, some of his courses for him. This is like, I think it's late last year, so like around October, November. And I gave him my price, and you know, I was in a position at that time, so it would have been early last year, so about 2 years ago, I guess now. I was in a position where I didn't have a whole lot of money, and I was kind of, you know, like I was just starting to raise my prices, and he said, no, can you do it for, you know, what about for $300 plus profit sharing? And like deep right away, my gut was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I was like, you know, I'll be honest with you. I spoke my truth. I'll be honest with you. If the money isn't where I want to be, my quality of work is going to be less. I'm not going to be. My heart's not going to be in it. I'm not going to be there.
Human nature.
Human nature. Yeah. It's just like it's like why? Because you know the reward of all your hard work is going to be so little. So it's like, why am I going to do that? And so, you know, but then he said he was firm on that. I was in a position where I had a bunch of bills coming up, and I was like, fuck it. And I went against my intuition, right? And I said, sure, I'll do it for that, plus profit sharing. And then, of course, you know, what was stated on the initial outline eventually being, well, we need this now, and then this, and then this, and then this. And I'm like, so my quality of work was like, you know, an hour a week. I'm like, my heart wasn't in it, because I felt like I was taken advantage of, because I'm assuming that the person I was talking to knew the position that I was in financially at that time, and I think that they were taking advantage of that. Like, oh, well, you know, he'll take the money. And I don't know if this is actually true. I don't know if, and I'm leaving names out, I don't know if this is actually, it might just be a story in my head, but I think from the relationship that we had at the time, that I think that was already had been discussed through prior engagement and prior conversations. So I felt that I was being taken advantage of. So then again, I had more resentment built up. I was more like, fuck this guy. Like, I don't want to do this shit.
And really the story in your head is all that matters. And that's a big thing. And we ran into this again with the hyper growth. We ran into it because there were people, like, we were excited, we were growing and bringing all these clients in, but the people that were working on the outskirts and the peripherals doing things, they're like, well, it's just another task for me. Like, what's, you know, so you can look, in a perfect world, people will want to do things for you and whatever. And there have this actually came up recently. I'm not going to mention the names, but I've had to convince people, like, we need to incentivize some of the things we want done. We want something shared, for example, like share a post, share a link, share this landing page. And the general consensus in the group that I was talking to was like, oh, people they want to help. I'm like, maybe they do, but human nature, if it's a friend of mine and they say, share this link or share a bunch of social media posts, I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to help you out. I may remember on a Sunday, oh, I'm on the toilet, I'm like, oh, I got to share this thing that Sean sent me. But if you say, hey, whoever shares this the most gets $100 gift card, I'm like, well, fuck, I'm sharing this every day. So
100%.
People, you can't count on the kindness of everybody just wanting to, and this leads back to exactly what you were just saying. It's like, you don't know how these people feel or think, and you can't just rely on. And I ran into this a lot with the nonprofit. We'd go to these meetings and all these millionaires in Fort Lauderdale. It's a rich place. And a lot of people I worked with were like, well, these people just want to give money away. I'm like, no, they don't. They don't want to. And we struggled with that. So like, I'd have to go like show them, like, well, this is what your money's going to be put to. But some of the people that worked in my nonprofit with me, which I hired them, so it's my fault, but I thought they were good at what they did, is they would say, well, it's a tax write-off for them. I'm like, you don't go up to somebody who has $500 million and be like, hey, it's a tax write-off. They don't fucking care. They have lawyers that do all this stuff for them. So that's a bad example.
They have plenty of tax write-offs. Like, They're like,
Yeah.
really? I can save money through taxes when I'm a
Yeah.
like they already know that shit. They know
Yeah,
that.
no, it was ridiculous, but
That's why they
it
buy
goes so
art.
it applies. It's a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
So a client, like clients we have today, will do it to me. I'm sure they still do it to you. I work for some people now that still try to push that envelope of trying to get more out of me than whatever. And then we
Mhm.
have to be cognizant of the people that work for us. For example, we have a rock star administrative person that works for us as a group now. The agreement is she gets paid salary for the month. Now, if I feel like there's a week that's extra heavy, I throw her an extra $100 at the end of the week because I'm like, I know what it's like to be in that position of like, well, I know I'm on salary, but they just dumped like 3 weeks worth of work on me or
Yeah.
whatever. Because, it's not, you just don't assume that because let me back up a
Yeah.
little bit. Don't assume that your people that work for you, or whether they're subcontractors or employees, they're going to say, yes, everything's great, boss. Because that happened to me in the government too. I'm sure in your corporate jobs and your railroad and all your blue collar trades jobs, when all day long we just fucking complain about management all day, and then somebody
Yeah.
comes around from management, and you're like, everything's awesome. You don't know what people are thinking.
You guys are
So
doing a great job up there.
yeah, yeah, and they're like, sounds good, like and then as soon as they walk away, you're like, that motherfucker. So
Well, and the
just
thing is, but like a lot of people aren't like you. They aren't like you. They don't do that extra they don't have that concept of fairness and realization. Like, oh, I just gave my salary employee twice as much work. Here's an extra $100. Our clients don't do that to us. They don't be like, oh, our contract said this. So actually, you know what? I really want to add like these 19 blog posts in there. It's like, okay, well,
yeah.
sauce me a little fucking love.
I know this episode's turning into, we were going to start talking about failures, but this is turning into more of like a managerial and
Yeah.
management thing, which is good because it also goes back to having multiple clients. And we had a meeting episode that kind of led into this. But so there's a couple clients I have right now. They'll want to hop on calls all the time, thinking that I'm just working for them. I'm like,
Mm.
you have to get in the queue, man. Like, I don't take same day meetings. I mean, I'll do it if I really have to, but I'm like, how rude is that? You're just going to put yourself on my calendar.
Yeah.
I'm not just working for you. So there's a lot of lines that have to be drawn there. But most importantly, if you hire somebody, and it could be a VA in the Philippines, not everybody who's watches this is going to do marketing work and everything else.
Mhm.
Just think like this person's whatever price they set, that's what they're comfortable with. They're probably being fair about it. Just be cognizant of people don't love working for you. Like people
Yeah.
like their jobs. They don't love their jobs.
There's a saying or a quote. It's like no one cares more about your business than you do. So no matter how
Right.
much you pay your employees, no matter how much you incentivize them, your business you're going to be the only one that cares the most. Like you're the people that
Right.
like love working for you maybe, but they don't care. At the end of the day, like if you're sinking and struggling and you can't afford to pay them, they're not going to be like, I'll do this for free. There might be some
Mm.
like business partners, but as far as employees go, like I mean, I've worked at companies before, and they didn't like the company legitimately ran out of money. And like as soon as I found out that we were getting paid on Friday, I'm like, oh, I'm out of here. Like I'm going to another place, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, we should like you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't be not be able to pay your employees. Like at this point we're as a multi-million-dollar construction company. I'm like, how can you not afford my $15 an hour wage back in 2003? Like you can't pay me?
Yeah.
Like fuck you. But
Yeah.
then again,
Yeah.
I was the paid help. So even though I loved working for that company, I love what they did. I love the job. It was fun. As soon as my paycheck was out, I jumped ship. I was like, I'm fucking out of here. So the same
Yeah.
thing with your business. If no one's going to care more about it than you do. So if you think that they're always going to be around, or like, oh hey, I really need this done. This is a really really important thing. Their heart might not be into the same as yours is.
And unless there's profit sharing, which is rare, unless there's
Mm-hmm.
bonuses help too. So bonuses can be in lieu of profit sharing,
Yeah.
and that could be, it doesn't have to be around Christmas because let's face it, a lot of people that work remotely now, there's people from all parts of the world. I'm not going to assume that somebody we hire from Pakistan celebrates Christmas. I highly doubt it, actually.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, bonuses and profit sharing helps because they have a vested interest in the company doing better. So if we get busier, then they make more money too. But you can't go to a bunch of, and I ran into this at the agency I used to work for. At this point, I should just mention who they were, but I'll hold off on that. But we were all salaried. We'd make the same amount of money per month. And the company would get busier and busier and busier. This is the agency Chris and I and the other. I'm not going to. I got to be careful, but they would get busier, and so our workload would get higher, but we're making the same amount of money. And then we'd have these big office meetings, these all hands meetings, and the owners would be like, "Oh, it's great, man. We have this much." And this is true. They had like several million in profits this year. Next year is going to be 2 million more in profit. And those are real numbers. And I'm like, well, fuck, I'm not getting paid any more for that. Now, I understand my role as an employee, I'm on salary. That's the deal that I negotiated. But don't come to meetings and just tell everybody we're making a ton more money. Oh, by the way, your workload's going to double and you're making the same. So again, it's something you have to really think about when you hire people. You know?
That's a big fuck you. It's like, because of all of your hard work, we are getting so much richer. You're going to stay the same. You're going to stay right there. But why don't you know, keep doing a great job.
Oh, and then they also went on this big retreat and they didn't invite him. That's what happens is owners get excited, money starts coming in, the profits start coming in. These days with social media, surely your employees see you posting all these things and whatever. You're entitled to do that. So the way small businesses are set up, at least in this country, and Canada's the same, is the owner gets the lion's share. It was their idea. They set it up. Yes, they're entitled to a lot of money and reward for that wherever you're at in whatever business you're in. Your employees, if you want to keep them loyal, just take care of them and just think about, oh, I gave this person 3 times as much work this week or whatever. And especially if you're not paying them much to begin with, just try to be fair about it, because it does make a big difference. Do you want that person actively looking for another job or only half-assing their work? You hit it on the head earlier. If somebody was like, here's extra work and I'm only going to pay you $5 an hour, I'll be like, okay, well, I'll get to your shit when I feel like it, when I'm tired, and fuck you. And then all of a sudden, when people are in management positions, they just like, everybody loves me. It's great. Can't fall into that trap, man. But in my government office, all cubicles, it looked just like on TV, just cubicles and offices everywhere. We're just bitching and complaining about the management, upper management, middle management, the whole fucking time. It's actually happened to me because I became first line management. And then all my old friends would be like, everything's great. And I'm like, no, it's not. Last week we were just complaining about this shit. Don't fucking lie to me. But so what would happen is the boss comes around, you're like, this place sucks. Everything they do is wrong. And then the boss comes out of the office and does a lap and everybody's like, everything's great, man. I'm like, so if you're a supervisor or if you're a business owner and your employees all tell you that everything's wonderful and great, they're probably just lying because they're nervous and they don't want to like come up and tell you that something fucking sucks. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
If anything, you should like almost, I don't know if it's the reward is the word I'm looking for, but like appreciate and respect the employees that tell you that everything isn't great. The ones that actually have the courage to stand up and say, hey, this isn't working, or, there's some disgruntled things happening, or some people aren't happy. Like that I'd rather have that than a fucking yes man any day. Like if I have someone's like, how's everything? Oh, everything's great. It's going good. Well, like they're just being a little bitch and afraid to say anything. And I don't like that. Like, have some balls, tell me what's going on, and I respect that more. And if anything, I don't want to use the word reward because I don't want to get in the habit of rewarding people for telling me that things suck. Like that's not what I'm looking for. It's like, oh, this guy gets off on telling me he's doing a shitty job. But like, you want to look for the employees and the people and the staff and whatever VAs you have that tell you, hey, look, I think this would work better. I think you should like. But the thing with that, though, is a little double-sided thing. You got to make sure that your ego isn't too high, like because there's been times where even people that we work with in our agency right now that have given me suggestions of ways to improve, my process, my outreach, my designing. And at the very beginning, I was just like, "Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?" I'm like, I felt like offended. I'm like, "No, I'm doing it great." And then I was like, then I kind of sat back. I didn't say it out loud, but like right away, I'm like, got defensive. Like, yeah, okay,
sure.
And I started like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, no, that's actually not a bad idea. So you have to like drop your ego and be open to the criticism because a lot of times their outside perspective is what you're really looking for because you've been so keen on doing it your way. It works. It could be better, but it's kind of like the saying, and like I used to have to listen to this, and then I kind of like changed my tune. But if it's not broke, don't fix it. Right? That's when I grew up hearing that my whole life. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But you could have something like you can have a piece of shit Toyota Camry from 1980 that it's running, it's not broken, but you could still enhance it and improve it and change the oil and throw new tires. So there's still things you can do. So I think people get in this mindset of like, if it's running and it's working, don't go try and changing it so you might break it worse. But no, you can actually try fixing it and making it better. So you have to have a good open ego to it. So
Yeah,
That
I'm
was
glad you brought that
that was a
up.
good
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good, not necessarily a failure story, but it was, I guess, is a failure in a sense because here's the failure. There it is. For so
Yeah.
long in my web design process, I was doing everything the exact same way, the same outreach process, the same information that I received from the client, the same, revisions, not setting boundaries and limits. And like, it worked for me, but it could have been so much better. And my ego was too high that I was just like, oh, I ain't fucking changing nothing. Like, I'm making money, like not great money. I'm not poor. I'm doing okay. And then my failure was just not, having my ego set up. Like, no, like you're in charge of, I don't know, I'm making a fake industry. You're in charge of client outreach. What the fuck do you know about web design? But because they're not in that realm, that
Mm-hmm.
they're like, they could see what I was missing. Like, oh, he just needs to do this. But I'm like, you don't know anything about what I do. Who are you? Right.
Yeah.
So it was a good failure and a good lesson to learn. I learned from failing.
Yeah, and I hate to bring this back to the government, but one of my things I was known for before I left was there was a saying there, and this applies to a lot of industries, and it just should work for this one as well for marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hey, why are we using this fax machine? This is a true story. Why are we faxing this to the building next door? Because at my office in Miami, we'd have to fax things to the federal prison next door. Now, this was not that long ago. There was email and other things. I was like, why are we doing this? And people would say, because that's the way we've always done it. And I was like, I fucking hate that. That's the way we've always done it. So it goes to your point about not wanting to improve or enhance things. I'm like, just because something's working doesn't mean you can't look at better ways to do things. So I don't ever want to hear that's the way we've always fucking done it. That makes me so fucking mad. I can't stand that. But getting back to the employees a little bit too, technology is so good these days. If you really wanted them to give you feedback, you can do it with a type form or something. It could be anonymous.
And the one thing that I learned, like I always hate saying that it's the way we've always done it. And I like look back, I'm like, we used to have slaves. We
Yeah,
used to have women used to be able to vote. You can't just
yeah,
say, that's the way we've
yeah,
always done it. Because I'm like,
yeah,
things have always changed. Like there's
yeah,
always like, you can't go back to that saying like, well, just it's the way it is. I'm like,
yeah,
like where was it?
yeah.
I had a company like the way that they're the way that they did time sheet was like, it was an actual like physical, like you got to punch in and punch out. I'm like, and it was so archaic. I'm like, couldn't you just like have like a Excel spreadsheet for the foreman to type in, he's here 10 hours, he's here 10 hours? Because like you'd forget your card, or you'd lose your card, then you'd have to like go back and like try and duplicate how many hours you punched in. I'm like, there's got to be a better way than an old fucking 3-hole punch on a
Yeah.
card. But it's
Like that.
just the way we've always done it.
Do you remember the Flintstones? They would use the dinosaurs that they would chomp down like the on the cement. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing from today is, even though we've been skipping around a little bit, is just careful who the hiring process. Don't always just assume that you can pay people the bare minimum and get work out of them, because yes, we exchange currency for work in this world that we live in now, but there are
Yeah.
still human beings on the other side of that. So just because you're like, well, I'm paying them, they should do what I ask them to do, I'm like, that's true. It's also true that they are people, and they have feelings, and they're like, screw
Mm-hmm.
this guy, or I love this guy. So if you want to cultivate loyalty and have a successful whatever your business is, just keep that in mind, because I've made the mistake several times where I'm like, like, this person's got to do what I tell them to do, and was it true?
Yeah.
Yes. Were they motherfucking me behind my back and probably giving me the bare minimum? Yes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
It's a good lesson to learn. Is like treat them like humans. They are employees. They're employees first, but they're people second. And a lot of people, they forget that. They just think that they're just employees. I've been treated like when I worked for CN. I was 158249. That was my ID number, and that's it.
like
Because
like a
I
prisoner. You're like a prisoner
like
wearing it
a,
on your shirt.
like a fucking prisoner. And like the way
Yeah.
that I knew this is because like I did a pretty fucking good job for 8 years, like pretty good. And the one time that I slip up, fired.
Oh shit. That
And
that
they,
fucking that's
and
so angry.
they don't praise the good work you do. They don't say,
Hmm.
oh, you're doing a great job. You're making us a lot of money. Things are coming on, working great. You do one wrong thing, fired. It happened to my dad too. He was a crane operator for CN for 26 years.
Hmm.
And he did one rule violation. So basically, let's say if you get a work block between point A and point B, he went outside of his permit that he was allowed to on the railway, on the tracks, by like 3 feet. And it doesn't matter, violation is violation. They fired him on the spot after
Oh my
26 years.
god.
And he was their best crane operator.
Yeah.
One of their best
Jesus
crane
Christ.
operators. So then, of
Yeah.
course, a week later, you know, it catches wind to all the other higher ups. So you got fired, and they, you know, they call him back. It's like, Russ, you know, we need you to come back. But Dad's like, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. That's funny. I
Like,
like that
yeah,
though.
it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the big thing again is like treat people with respect. Treat people that you work for. That, you know, it's not, they're not just money. So like, sure. And give them appreciation. Let them know they're doing a good job, right? Like, even though, yeah,
Yes.
like it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's just their, you know, I got them to do this. It's their job. It's like, yeah, but people, we're humans. We have feelings. We have emotions. We want to know that we're
Yeah.
doing a good job. We like that positive affirmation. Even if you don't want to tip them more, just tell them like, you're doing a great job, right? Like, I really
Yeah,
appreciate
that's
it.
very true.
That,
And to
that goes a
expand
long
on
way.
that, it does. It really goes a long way. It makes a big difference. And when you get a chance to, throw them a little bit of extra money if you can, because people love praise and they love affirmations, they have all this stuff. They also like it when they're like, oh, I got an extra little bit of money, you know, because that's
Yeah.
really what they're here for. Do you think they're not just working for you because they feel like it? They're here to make money, and if you give them a little bit more, if you can, that really does say a lot.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to end it on this one. I appreciate everyone for coming in and watching on again, supporting. Our accounts are definitely growing with the free positive support. We're getting a lot of views,
Yeah.
and we're getting some new subscribers, and apparently people actually want to pay attention to what we're talking about. So that's good to me.
And on that note, we also noticed we're getting a ton of views and a ton of watch time. And it's also showing, because I watch the analytics, it also shows that a lot of people who watch are actually not subscribed. So we would appreciate if you would do it. It doesn't cost you anything. If you could just, I know it's this cheesy and cliche. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but please click the subscribe button. It would help us out a lot. And we appreciate you guys. To be continued next time, we'll be talking to Chris Skinner again. And if you didn't catch the last show, go back and watch that. It's pretty good. And then we'll be getting into some social media marketing and strategy. So to be continued.